welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup and makeup brushes. And today we are going to be talking about the new blush brush from Hermes. So they have released two new brushes. There's a full size, which is this one, and this retails for $100 in US dollars, and it's made in France. There's also a travel size brush, which, you know, is going to have like a big gold ferrule and a big white portion on the handle, and that's it. So it's going to be a smaller, shorter style. It's also angled. One of the big differences between these two brushes is going to be the fact that this one here in full size is goat hair, whereas the travel size brush is synthetic. Now, I did not purchase the synthetic brush, but I thought that this one here looked like it would be something, you know, more ideal to apply these particular blushes. One of the things that I was unsure of with the Hermes blushes in general is, you know, we were seeing very different pictures. Sometimes in the photos, the blushes would appear very dark in the pan. The swatches in general looked very light, not very pigmented. So I was very curious about this brush in particular because it is an angled brush, which, as we know with angled brushes, you know, you go one direction, you have some give, but it's not going to have a ton of movement with the bristles. So it acts like a more dense brush, which does help put more pigment on the face. So this brush in particular is going to be more dense. And if you look closely at the bristles, you can see that they, you know, they're not as fine or as smooth as the goat hair in Sonia G. She uses a finer quality grade of goat hair. I believe it's Psycho. I'll double check on that and put that on the bottom of the screen. But you can see here, if you look at the individual hairs, that these are smoother. It's more of a straight shaft versus these, which have a little bit more wave to them. It's slightly coarser. One of the things to note is you can see how much it actually fans out from the ferrule here. It is dense. These are tightly packed in here. I think the actual shape and kind of length of the bristle hairs keeps it kind of dense and more firm in general, which allows you to apply the blush products in a more pigmented fashion. So I have a quick clip of applying the Rose Feu blush. This is number 61, and also the Rose Tan. So we have Rose Feu and Rose Tan. So I'm going to show you the quick clip of that first, and then we'll come back and talk about this brush and some comparisons. Okay, so on my skin, I have the Koh Gen Do Moisture Foundation and a light dusting of the Koh Gen Do Brightening Moisture Powder in Blurring Beige. And we are going to apply the new Rose Hermes blush in number 61, Rose Feu. And we're going to use the Hermes blush brush. So you can see that this is an angled blush brush, and there's not a whole lot of movement with this. It's fairly dense. So instead of like sweeping across, I'm just going to kind of tap on here. You can see how much pigment comes up. Just knock some of that off. And let's start by tapping that on. So that's just tapped on. Okay, so there's just a little bit, and let's just build it up a little bit just to see how that goes. All right, so I'm gonna stop building that, but you can see that it can definitely be built up. I'm actually gonna wipe off this brush and go ahead and buff that a little bit. So I wiped off the brush, and now I'm just kind of trying to blend that a little bit better. Wow. All right, so let's go on the other side. All right, so this would be a light wash. So you can see the difference here, one layer versus two layers of Rose Feu. All right, and I have to make it even, so. Wow. I'm gonna take this Sonia G Smooth Buffer with no powder and just kind of buff that in the skin a little bit. Okay, so you can see that Rose Fuchsia can be a very pigmented blush, and we're gonna go ahead and try the Rose Tan right underneath it, kind of as bronzer, using the same brush. So I just picked up a tiny bit of it because I did try it in a demo with the swatches, and you know, it goes on pretty easily. So there's the Rose Tan using this brush. All right, so there's everything there. I'm gonna buff some meteorites into my face, finish my makeup, and I'll see you. All right, so I hope that was helpful. Real quickly, I should have shown you what it would apply like with just like a, you know, regular blush brush. So this is the Sonia G Soft Cheek, which is dyed goat as well. So you can see I've got plenty of pigment on here. I'm just gonna put a little bit of this on top here, so you can kind of see it's still gonna be a pretty pigmented application with a brush like this as well. Now, off camera, I have tried this with synthetic brushes as well, but I feel like these blushes in particular perform better with natural hair. But just to give you kind of a comparison, the pigmentation level is not going to be solely related to this brush. Now, just a few notes about this brush. So as I mentioned, it's made in France. It does say that on the brush. And we have Hermes on the other side. You have a lacquered wooden handle here with the color blocking that is very similar to the lip enhancer color blocking pattern. You have a brush gold pinched ferrule, and you can see that the bristles here, you know, it's densely packed. So again, these are goat. It's not quite as fine as Secaho goat hair, but it's, you know, performs very well. I don't think that it feels like scratchy. It's definitely not the highest quality goat hair. So you can feel running your fingers this way that the hairs are a little bit more crimped, but using this portion on your face feels soft. So I hope that makes sense. Sometimes when you have these angled brushes, depending on how the fibers are laid, they can feel a little bit stiffer, a little bit more pokey. And this does not. It does feel smooth going on the face when you are using it as intended. So here's just a view of the top of the brush. Now, as for my thoughts on this particular brush, is it worth $100 US? I think that is a personal decision. If you are looking solely at the fibers, the quality of the fibers, the length, the brush shape, and so forth, you know, in that case, no. And I can tell you right now, for $100, I can also, or I could have also have gotten the Chikahodu KZ04 brush, which is a super soft squirrel hair brush. It's Kazan squirrel hair. It is my favorite blush brush. It is incredibly soft. This is definitely a higher quality brush than the Hermes brush, and they both retail for $100 US. This, however, you know, if you're looking for it, it's pretty much gone. So, you know, I think there are still a few places you can pick this up. Check Fude Beauty and CD Japan. I have already checked with Visage. They are out. And so, yeah, so if you're looking for the KZ04, yeah, not too many left. But back to Hermes. So we've got the Sonia G here. This is the soft cheek brush. This one here is dyed goat hair as well. You can see, obviously, it's not as densely packed. There aren't quite as many brush hairs in this case, but still, this is going to retail for less than half the price than the Hermes. And this one is softer. So the Sonia G goat hair is definitely softer than the Hermes. So is this brush worth $100 US? Again, I think that's very personal and based solely on the brush shape, the size of the brush, and the fibers used. In that case, no, it is not worth it. However, we all know that with Hermes, we're paying for the brand, we're paying for the logo, we're paying for the beautiful color blocking, which in this case matches very much so with the lip enhancers. And yes, so for me personally, am I happy to have this? I am very happy to have this. And I think it is a really nice brush. It is functional, it performs well, it feels soft on the face, and you know, I can't say that I'm mad at it. Honestly, when I saw this in the promo photos, I thought they were going to end up charging more than $100. And I kind of put a limit on myself and I said, okay, if it's more than 125 US dollars, I would not purchase this brush. But I really wanted it. So I was very happy to see that it was only $100. I know that's kind of messed up, but you know, that's just kind of how it worked for me. So is this on the same level as a Fude brush? No, it is not. But again, I do think it performs very well. And you could see in the little demo that it does put the product very nicely on your face. You know, it picks up product well, it disperses product well. And I'm actually very happy that they used goat hair instead of something like squirrel hair, because the squirrel hair being softer and so forth would not perform quite as well to pick up these brushes. And I think that this particular shape of brush with the length of these bristles, the density of it, I think all of that is well designed to work well with the Hermes blushes and produce or apply more pigment a little bit more easily to the face than some other brushes do. So the first brush that I want to compare to is the Surratt sculpting brush. So that is what the Hermes brush reminded me of the most at first. And obviously, you know, they are not the same. You can see the Surratt has a much steeper angle here and more of a drop off, whereas this is going to be more rounded and curved at the edges. And the Surratt is a mix of squirrel and goat. So it is going to be a little bit softer. However, I have to say that there's not, you know, it's definitely softer, the Surratt, but it's not a huge softness difference when you're touching the top portion of the brush. Okay, going up and down like this, if you're petting it, yes, you can definitely feel it, but on the face is not going to be as significant of a softness difference, in my opinion. Now, just for comparisons, you can see, let's just get these even. You can see the height difference between these two brushes. So the Hermes definitely has a longer handle. Ferrule and so forth is going to be shorter on the Hermes versus the Surratt, which is here. And yeah, so this Surratt brush, I believe, I'll double check that, but I think this retails for $125 versus the $100 for Hermes. And in this case, you know, again, personal decisions. Performance-wise, I think both of these brushes work well to apply pigment, put that on. The Surratt is going to be smaller, so it does work better for a more targeted placement. And it is a little bit softer, so you're going to be a little bit lighter on pigment than you would with this. The Hermes just picks up the pigment slightly better than the Surratt, but the Surratt, having a mix of the squirrel and the goat, really allows you to, you know, pick up quite a bit of pigment still and maintain the softness of a squirrel hair brush. So personal preferences, but in my opinion, you know, I feel like although they do definitely look different, these in my collection are the two closest for a match. So just solely based on performance as well. Now, the closest brushes in shape and size is going to be the Hermes with the Esom V50. So you can see here that they are going to be more similar in size. The Esom V50, it is bigger, okay? You can see just looking at the ferrules here that the Esom V50 is going to be bigger and it is a little bit more pinched. The Esom V50, this is the synthetic vegan series of brushes from Esom. And one of the things I wanted to show you here is the amount of give, and look at the way the materials kind of bounce back. So the synthetic brush from Esom kind of bounces back faster. It has more of a spring to it, whereas the Hermes doesn't. It actually, even though these are both very densely packed, because of the natural hair in the Hermes and the lack of springiness in comparison to the Esom, it feels more dense. So if that makes sense. So this one actually feels a little bit looser. So performance-wise, it doesn't feel quite as dense. Now it is dense. It will pick up product. It applies it very well. I think this is a great brush. So if you're looking for a synthetic option that is similar to the Hermes, I think that this is, it's the closest I have in my collection. Now, I just want to note that all fan-shaped brushes are not going to be considered equal. You can see here, this is the Katie Jane Hughes 05 brush. You can see that it is going to be looser, fluffier. Obviously, the length on these hairs is going to give it a fluffier appearance as well. Lost a hair. Okay, so you can see though that with this, you're going to get a light wash of color compared to something like the Hermes. Just for a height comparison here, you can see that the Katie Jane Hughes is going to be ever so slightly taller. It is just slightly taller brush up to the ferrule than the Hermes, and obviously it has longer bristles, so it's longer overall. And just real quickly going back to the Esom V50, you can see that the Hermes and the Esom are going to be much more comparable in size. So the fibers are a little bit longer in the Esom, and the Hermes ferrule goes up slightly more than the Esom does, but they are fairly comparable in size here. So those are really the denser angled brushes that I have. I do have a couple of more angled brushes, and I can just tell you now that if you compare these, this is the Chikuhodo F04 and the Kyoto Lunar New Year, Year of the Ox. You can see that these are going to have a lot more flex and give. So this one here, the F04, it does work well. If you have checked out my Hermes swatches video, I do use this brush with the Rose Tan if you are interested in seeing how that works. But you can see that in comparison, because of the length of these and the fact that these are going to be squirrel and fox hair, these are much softer and they aren't going to pick up the product quite as strongly as the Hermes. And because they are longer, a little bit floppier, you're going to get a softer wash of color on your face. So if you're looking to increase pigmentation, the Hermes blush brush, I think, is actually pretty much ideal for shape and size. So I hope this quick overview of the Hermes blush brush was helpful. And I think, personally, if I had to pick between this brush and the travel brush from Hermes, I personally think the full-size brush is more worth it. The travel brush is, I forget exactly, I think it's somewhere around $48 US. So it's about half the price. It is, it's going to be a smaller brush. It's a travel size. I'm not sure exactly how high it goes up, but something like this. And it appears to have longer bristles. And again, being synthetic, it's not going to pick up the product quite as strongly or disperse it as well as the natural hair. And I feel like, for the cost, this is actually going to be a better buy than the travel brush from Hermes, but that is a personal opinion there. So is this a must-have brush? In my opinion, based on quality, size, shape, and so forth, no, it is not a must-have brush. You can definitely, for the same amount of money or even less money, get a way nicer blush brush. However, I personally am very happy to have this. Sometimes when you are making a purchase, you have to weigh the amount of joy or pleasure you get from a product with the quality. And in this case, I am happy to pay a little extra for the packaging on this one because it just makes me smile. So, and I wouldn't be saying that if it didn't perform well, but it does perform well. So in that case, for me, it is a worthwhile purchase, but it's definitely not going to be the most valuable purchase. So I hope that makes sense. And I just want to mention that I believe everything that Hermes has just recently released is permanent. There are no limited edition items. We do have that Asia exclusive blush shade, but in regards to the brushes, the other 8 blushes, the lip enhancers, those I believe are all permanent items. So even though this brush has been selling out fairly quickly, it will be back. So there is no rush to buy it. If you are unsure if you want to pick this up, wait, take your time, think about it, check out reviews and so forth, and kind of weigh the cost effectiveness for you. Is it, how much joy does it bring you versus the value of the brush and so forth? Is it worth it to you? Keep in mind that department stores often have sales where, maybe it's not going to be like a percentage off, but if you have other items that you're picking up and they're doing like a $50 off $250, purchase, then in that case, you know, this should be included if it's in stock. So that might be another way to get it if you're kind of unsure and maybe you just want to pay a little bit less for it. So I would definitely recommend, if you're interested in this, wait for a sale. If you are unsure, you know, I'm always about trying to get the best price that you can. All right, so I hope this was helpful. And thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please be sure to leave them down below. And have a great day. Stay safe and healthy, and I will see you very soon.